I screwed up my internet. MWSD downstairs. Someone's upstairs.
Sanitary District to order at 7:33 p.m. on Thursday, April 2nd, 2020. Roll call, please.
Okay. Director Boyd?
Here.
Director Decker?
Here.
Director Harvey?
Here.
Director Lohman?
Here.
Director Slater-Carter?
Present. I'm going to move on to the president's statement, and I'll make it very brief, but while we're all in our stay-at-home mode, there are two things I might remind you of. One, and you've probably seen the posters all over town, Montara and Moss Beach, and I know Sam put them up in various places too, and that is that flushable wipes may flush, but they are very, very bad for the pumps and lines in the sewer system. So please consider them trashable wipes and just put them in the trash rather than down the toilet. And for that matter, there's only a few things that I won't go into detail on that should go down the toilet. But for the most part, things like cotton swabs don't go down the toilet. All kinds of things like that that are not toilet paper or body waste don't go down the toilet. Put them in the trash, please. It will keep our sewer system much healthier. The other is, you may have noticed so far that we have we have significantly less rain this year than in years past. And in fact, so has Hetch Hetchy, and the snow measurement for water was very low too. So everybody needs to pay attention to keeping our water rates at a our water rate usage at a lower rate. So thank you very much for that. And let's move on to oral comments.
Catherine, just real quick, I saw there was a big, whatever you call it, board at the Montero post office talking about the flushable wipes. You can't possibly miss it as you go in the door. It's a huge stand with all that information on it. It's a great service.
Yes, we can thank Clemens and our crew for getting that up as a reminder to everyone. I think we are ahead of the public notice nationwide on bringing this to people's attention. But it is very important. So I thank everyone for doing so. I see Clemens with his hand up.
Yeah, I want to take the opportunity to share with you, you've already read in the newspaper that we had a pump failure due to flushing of wipes. And we actually had now a second pump failure this week. So we found actually rags. So somebody seemed to have cut up a T-shirt of some sorts. And that led to a second pump failure this week. So that just shows how important it is that we get the message out, and that's why we're, putting these posters up and doing everything we can to alert folks.
And Clemens, tell people how expensive these pump failures are. It's not like it's a little aquarium pump or something that where the fix is $10. We're talking very expensive equipment.
Yeah, so we don't have a final cost for any of the two, but for the first one, we have a cost estimate of what the repair will cost, and it's going to be around $50,000. The pump needs to be pulled, a rental pump needs to be plugged in, the broken pump needs to be somehow repaired, and we're just in the process of finding out if it still can be repaired, if we can find the right components right now, or if we have to purchase a new pump, then it could actually be even more expensive than 50,000.
Yes.
So we'll keep the board updated on this cost, of course, and we talk about this cost also at a later item when we're looking at trying to recover some of the cost that is related to this national emergency, and that's going to be one example.
Right. And I think it's important. We have done it in a lot of meetings, but I see a whole lot of new names. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'm glad to see you here, each and every one of you. And I think we need to make it a point to let people know how expensive all the parts and pieces and costs on both water and sewer are. They've gone up significantly in the last few years, and I think it's for people who got a note about the water system charges that's going to be on your water bills starting this year. We need to be very consistent in telling you how much these things cost. A new pump can be $1 million. Even a generator is up over $100,000. So these are things that we need to keep current on with both with technology because of the state and federal requirements, and also for the reliability of our system to make sure everybody gets good clean water when they turn the tap on. So moving right along then, I'm moving to oral comments for items other than those on the agenda, and you can put on your screen, you can push the little hand if you have a comment. I'll read your name and you can make the comment so that we have it. This meeting's being recorded. Clemens.
Yeah, so we actually received a comment that Tracy is going to read out loud right now. I think you prepared to do that, Tracy?
Yes.
That's what okay, perfect.
Are you ready? The written public comment is from Ann Rothman, and she writes, "Good evening. I am writing regarding the COVID-19 response and need for modification of meeting settings. I would like to see a modification to the protest process for proposed rate increases, which are to go into effect July 1st. As people are encouraged to shelter in place, it may not be possible to mail in a letter of protest prior to the June 4th deadline. I'm requesting that protests of proposed rate increases be accepted by email as well as physical mail. Residents who do not have postage to submit a letter of protest may not feel comfortable leaving their homes to go to the post office to mail their letters. They should be allowed to email in a protest from the safety of their homes, as the shelter in place asks people to do. It is unbelievable that in this state of emergency where people are struggling financially just to hold on to their homes, that MWSD is asking for such huge increases in rates and property tax assessments after just instituting sewer assessment and rate increase in May of 2018. Your February budget does not reflect the dire need for another influx of cash. Your rationale for the increase in rates is the exact one you used 2 years ago. Ideally, you would reconsider the rate hikes altogether. However, if you choose to go ahead with this proposal, you should do so in a fair manner. Requiring mailed submissions of protests is not fair, particularly in light of the dire situation our country is in right now. Thank you for your consideration of my request. Sincerely, N.R. Moss Beach resident of 27 years.
Okay, thank you. Oral comments, we really don't have much of a tradition of answering them back, but get Christine and Clemens, if you would like to give a brief answer for Anne.
Yeah, sure. What we're doing right now is, or what we always do when it comes to public meetings, is we're following the law, particularly the Brown Act is what guides us on how we're supposed to hold meetings. There are also strict guidelines in regards to Proposition 218, what can be done, what can't be done. Obviously, some of what is in, or what was in place, what is currently in place, isn't working anymore. For example, this meeting, the Brown Act was actually amended by the governor Friday, 2 weeks ago, I believe, to allow for this setting that we're having right now. So the online meetings were not permitted until very recently. And so we're following the exact guidelines and the governor's order right now. And so we're in the and same for the Prop 218 process. So if that should be amended, then we will have to follow it. At this time, I can say that we have a drop-off location at the office. We actually have multiple drop-off locations at the office that allow anyone to submit protest letters. They can also still be mailed. So all this can be done either in person or by mail, and that with adherence to the social distancing guidelines that we all see right now in San Mateo County. So if there is anything that requires a change, then we will implement that. What I also want to say is, of course, that this is not anything that was planned with this pandemic in mind. So I want to be clear that, you know, we have, of course, a changed situation. We don't, however, have a change in our financial needs, unfortunately. That remains. So we definitely need funds to continue operating.
Thank you. Christine, do you want to talk a little bit more about the importance of the Brown Act?
Sure, certainly President Slater Carter. Yes, the Brown Act is the overriding purpose is to permit public participation in meetings. However, like the manager described, in this time of a state of emergency, the governor has permitted some deviations from the requirements that permit local agencies not only to conduct their meetings, but also to conduct their meetings and their business so as to ensure compliance with the federal, state, and local ordinances. And certainly the public commenter mentioned the shelter-in-place order, and the Brown Act and the governor's order has allowed Montara and other local agencies the ability to comply with the Brown Act, but also ensure that shelter-in-place orders can be adhered to. And one more thing I just want to mention is we have an item on the agenda that is asking this board to consider declaring an emergency, which would grant the manager, but also the board permission and to deviate from certain rules and regulations pertaining to how Montara conducts its business. So when we get to that item, we certainly can continue discussing the comment if you want. And we also have another item on the Brown Act and holding our future meetings remotely like we are doing now. So the board will have the ability to discuss and consider all of these issues.
Gee, thanks. That was great. Do we,
Catherine?
I don't see any other comments. Scott, yes, I see your hand.
I just want to make sure that we say very, very directly that Prop 218 notice and protest provisions are explicitly very detailed, written out how we're to do it. And we don't have any latitude on things, including things like the point size of text on the notice. I mean, it's very specific. That doesn't mean that we can't take into consideration for ourselves as board members comments that arrive to us in any manner. And I really appreciate the email, some cogent thoughts, and it's important that we hear from our constituents. So if something changes I mean, my guess is that the governor's office took care of some things in the emergency order, like the modification to the suspension of some of the rules about the Brown Act, as they were scrambling to do a whole bunch of other things, many of them extremely important. So things like what to do with Prop 218 notices, I wouldn't be surprised to see the governor's office follow up with something reasonable to try to take into account the stay-at-home orders. I hope to see something like that.
Yes, yes. I will say we are going to the post office at about 10 o'clock at night. There's very few people there then. So there are ways to use the post office. Again, I don't see any other hands from the public. Do you, Scott? I don't want anybody to feel left out.
No, I don't.
Okay, we will move on. We have no public hearing and we are moving on to the consent agenda. For the public, it is to approve the minutes for special meeting January, special meeting January 30 and regular scheduled board meeting for March 5th, 2020. Approve financial statements for February 2020. Approve warrants for April 1st, 2020. SAM flow report for February 2020. I'd like to pull that actually. Monthly review of current investment portfolio. Connection permit applications.
Catherine, we've lost your audio.
January 2020. To pull the SAM flow report for brief comment. Do we have a motion?
Catherine, you cut out there for a little bit. Is it fair to say
I'm
that
sorry.
is it fair to say that you read through the consent agenda and then suggested that we would pull the SAM flow report, but otherwise move the
Yes.
rest?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, understanding that, I move for the adoption of everything except the SAM flow report.
A second.
Motion by Scott, second by Rick. All those in favor say, oh, no, it's a roll call vote, Tracy. Every vote has to be roll call on this.
Okay. Director Boyd,
Aye.
Director Decker,
Aye.
Director Harvey,
Aye.
Director Loman,
Yes.
Director Slater Carter.
Yes. And the SAM flow report, I just wanted to point out that Half Moon Bay's flow is now up to 58.6%
Wow.
of the SAM flow.
Hey, Catherine, just as a point of order, we need to state the outcome of the vote at the end of each vote.
Oh, thank you. Motion for consent agenda carried unanimously, and I would like a motion for the SAM flow report, please.
So moved.
So second.
Okay, motion by Scott, second by Rick. All those in favor say, please do a roll call.
Okay. Director Boyd,
Aye.
Director Decker,
Yes.
Director Harvey,
Aye.
Director Lohman,
Yes.
Director Slater Carter.
Yes, and the motion to approve the SAM flow report for February 2020 passed unanimously.
Catherine,
Yo,
just real quick comment, a follow-up to Catherine's with Half Moon Bay at 58%. For the public, traditionally Half Moon Bay is paying for 50% of the types of fees based on flows. So they got a good deal here. They're using a lot more of their percent, but only have to pay for 50.
and who pays for the balance?
Everybody else.
That would be Montara and Granada.
Yep.
Okay, we have no old business. Moving along to new business, review and possible action establishing temporary location for board meetings during COVID-19 pandemic. And just to add that the governor of California has extended that to May 3rd.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. And it's not only the governor, but there's also the local San Mateo County health officer that also declared a local emergency. And we all understand that we're directed to shelter in place, limit public gatherings. We just talked about how the governor actually amended the Brown Act to make this possible that we are meeting online. And so this partial suspension of the Brown Act will remain in effect for as long as we need it, as long as we need to practice social distancing. And so we think that it is prudent that this board actually authorize that on a temporary basis, the holding of all board meetings is remotely for the duration of the COVID-19 emergency. So we're asking to adopt a resolution establishing a remote meeting place for the district's board meeting for the duration of the emergencies. And there is some of the orders, as Catherine pointed out, mentioned in the resolution. We have to update this resolution because there was some further amendments made since the publication of this board packet. So we'd ask to approve in concept, and so that we can revise the dates.
Okay. Do we have any board discussion? Do we have any public discussion? I see no hands raised, figuratively speaking, of course, for public discussion. Do we have board discussion?
Nope.
I think it's a prudent move. We're not going to be able to get together in person for some time. So I think going ahead and just owning that and figuring out the best way we can keep taking care of the community's business is the best thing.
Good. Do we have a motion to approve, and I'm the next resolution in order?
So move.
Rick, motion by Rick,
I second the motion.
second by Jim Harvey. Roll call vote, please.
Director Boyd,
Aye.
Director Decker,
Aye.
Director Harvey,
Aye.
Director Lohman,
Yes.
Director Slater Carter.
Yes. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to new business item 2, review and possible action concerning San Mateo County Mid-Coast Comprehensive Transportation Management Plan.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. We were approached by Katie Faulkner, and she's a planner with San Mateo County.
Oh, hi, Katie.
And she asked if she could make this presentation to this board. The county published draft Mid-Coast Comprehensive Transportation Management Plan. We sent a link to the full document so that it could be reviewed by the board. San Mateo County is right now actively reaching out to the community and is trying to find ways how to receive comments and raise awareness. And I think that is just so much more challenging right now. I very much appreciate that the county is actually approaching us and trying to reach out. And I think this format right now at least allows for presentation here. So I'm going to suggest that we ask Katie to tell us what this draft right now includes. And we have a slideshow presentation that we're able to get into the board packet, so everyone should be able to follow along.
Got it.
Yeah, hi everyone. If it's all right, I can also share my screen so that you can see the presentation as I'm going through it.
Please.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you for allowing me to come present tonight. We really appreciate the opportunity. It is a bit of a funny time we're in right now, and we are adjusting the best we can, our project team, and so we appreciate the chance to present to you online. So with that, I will share my screen. All right, all right, there you go. Can everyone see that all right?
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Great, perfect. All right, well, good evening, board members, staff, and members of the public. My name is Katie Faulkner, and I'm a planner with the County of San Mateo with the Planning and Building Department. And tonight I'm going to be presenting some information on Connect the Coast Side, the San Mateo County Mid-Coast Comprehensive Transportation Management Plan. So that's a bit of a mouthful, so I'll usually just call it Connect the Coast Side or maybe just the plan. So the reason I'm presenting to you right now is because we have released a public working draft of the plan for review. And we are currently trying to get the word out about the draft plan and get as much feedback as we can before updating the plan to hopefully get to a final version. And like I said, I appreciate the chance to present to you tonight. All right. So to let you know where we're going to go with this presentation, I'll give a brief overview of the plan. I'll give a little bit of history about how we got here. I'll go over the recommended projects and programs we have in the plan and talk about the feedback we're looking for and next steps. All right, plan overview. So up on the screen now is a map of our project area. So you can see the project area kind of in the grayish color. So the plan focuses on areas surrounding Highway 1 and State Route 92, and it specifically focuses in on the unincorporated mid-coast communities of Montara, Moss Beach, El Granada, Princeton, and Miramar. So what does this plan cover? So it's a comprehensive transportation plan, which means that it covers walking, biking, public transit, driving, and land use, and it makes recommendations in all these categories. All right, so a little bit about the history. All right, so the initial requirement for Connect the Coast Side came out of the Mid-Coast Local Coastal Program update back in 2012. And this update required the development of a comprehensive transportation management plan to address traffic impacts of development on roads and highways in the Mid-Coast. And Connect the Coast Side was officially kicked off back in 2014, and the project team produced several contributing reports that did things that projected the future development on the Mid-Coast, analyzed the current and future transportation efficiencies, and made recommendations to address those issues. This work included extensive public outreach and feedback, which included things like a virtual workshop, several in-person public workshops, and meetings of the Board of Supervisors, Planning Commission, Mid-Coast Community Council, Technical Advisory Committee, and more. And so they took all of that feedback and it shaped what Connect the Coast is today and the draft plan we have today. So Connect the Coast Side went on a bit of a hiatus in 2017 and 18, restarted in 2019, and in January 2020, we've released the draft, the public draft of the plan, which is where we're at right now. And now, like I said, we're trying to get the word out about the plan. We're looking for public outreach. Our initial outreach plans had to be adjusted a little bit, and so now we're trying to go online and look for different opportunities online and maybe plan a few public online meetings. Okay. Going into the recommended projects. Connect the Coast Side recommends multiple different projects in different modal areas. This plan was shaped by previous planning efforts, and so some of these projects originated in other plans like Highway 1 Safety and Mobility Study, so they might be familiar. You might have heard about them before. But the benefit of Connect the Coast Side is that it creates an overall vision for transportation on the Mid-Coast, and it lays out priorities for funding, and it puts it all in one place. Okay, so now to go over the projects, and I'm gonna do that by mode. And we're gonna start with walking. So a big project in Connect the Coast Side is the Multimodal Parallel Trail. So this project would create a multimodal trail on the east side of Highway 1, separated from Highway 1. The trail would connect Montara, Moss Beach, El Granada, Miramar, and Half Moon Bay together so that people could travel between these communities without actually having to get on Highway 1. The plan also recommends adding safe crossings across Highway 1 because this is a bit of an issue. The plan recommends adding sidewalks where they're missing and fixing up existing sidewalks to create continuous pathways for people to be able to walk. And it also recommends completing the coastal trail throughout the entire study area. Okay, moving on to some bike improvements. So the multimodal trail also falls into bike improvements because it can be used by walkers or bikers. In addition, the plan is recommending bike lanes and some sort of bikeway, either a bike route or a lane along Airport Street. Make it easier to bike there and improve safety. We're also recommending widening the shoulders of Capistrano Road for a bike route and installing bicycle parking throughout the study area along the multimodal trail and in different communities. Okay, now we'll turn to driving. So we are recommending a few different things. One example is turn lanes and acceleration lanes at Graywell Cove. Adding left turn lanes at major businesses along Highway 92. And also extending the passing lanes on Highway 92. Adding stop signs where missing. Adding either roundabout or signals at certain intersections with heavy traffic along Highway 1 and State Route 92, and installing traffic calming projects on Main Street in Montara and Carlos Street in Moss Beach. Additionally, we're recommending some shoulder improvements to Highway 1 in order to make it easier to navigate and a little bit safer. And these improvements would be focused in community areas and would potentially look like adding curb and gutter to these areas and making consistent lane widths of less than 12 feet. All right, moving on to public transit. So we recommend bus stop improvements, such as adding benches or shelters to bus stops to make them more comfortable to use. Also, making sure that people can actually walk to these bus stops by adding sidewalks if they're missing or crosswalks where they're needed. We'd also like to recommend working with Samtrans to improve bus service on the Mid-Coast wherever we can. And another recommendation is developing a park and ride lot that can be used for commuters during the week and visitors on the weekend and during events. Now, on to land use programs, a little bit different than those infrastructure improvements we were just talking about. So we recommend several land use programs and policies that could reduce development on the coast and offset some traffic impacts from development. So specifically, we are recommending a lot merger program to reduce the number of lots and homes built on the Mid-Coast, and that program would result in larger lots with more on-site private open space. So this program would merge adjacent parcels, which are under the same ownership, that are too small to meet the current standards to create one larger parcel. And after that lot merger program, Connect the Coast Side recommends studying a lot retirement program. And a lot retirement program would require a one-to-one retirement of development rights on existing lots in exchange for the creation of new subdivisions. And so this could also potentially reduce development on the coast and therefore reduce traffic impacts. And lastly, the plan recommends a transportation mitigation impact fee that would collect fees from new development projects. These fees would help pay for projects in Connect the Coast Side and serve as a potential check on development. Okay, feedback. Like I said earlier, Connect the Coast Side is currently in a phase of collecting feedback on these recommendations, and we plan to use the feedback we hear to update the plan. So these updates could be refining our current recommendations, adding new recommendations, or adding new information to the plan. So to give you an example of what we've already heard and what we're already considering adding into the plan, we've heard that we should integrate safe routes to schools into the plan, address emergency evacuations, address sea level rise and erosion, and explore programs to reduce transportation demand. And so that's what we've already heard, and those are ideas of what could potentially be updated in the plan. Right, and so part of the reason we're here tonight is we want to know what the community thinks. We want to know what the highest priority projects are. We want to know what changes we can make to help people drive less. Is there anything else we should be considering? Is there anything we missed? I'd also like to ask the board, we have been considering releasing a survey surrounding mobility and communications with the Mid-Coast. And we've been talking about, is this the right time? Are people open to filling out such a survey? And so I wanted to maybe get some feedback on that too and see, is where you are, would this be a good time for a survey? It'd be great to hear that. All right. And that is what I have to share with you tonight. I'd love to hear from the board, the staff, any interested members of the public who are listening. And, I can take questions or comments right now, or if you want to send me questions or comments later, my email's up on the screen. Contact Joe Leclerc, who's also working on this project, and his contact information is also on the screen. And I just want to say thank you for this chance to share some information with you, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me see. I don't see any hands up or questions from the public. Please feel free to put your hand up if you have questions for Katie. While we're waiting, why don't we move to the board, and then we can, if at the end of the board's question and answer period, we'll move back to the public in case anyone has thought of a question that they would like to ask. First, I want to thank Katie for doing this. I think that including the special districts, in addition to what you have done with Midcoast Community Council, is fabulous. I've been working on this for more than a decade, so it's nice to see how far it's come. Let's turn to questions from the board. Peter Decker, do you have any questions?
Not immediately, but I think the idea for the survey is a good one. I'd like to think about it a little bit more. I have not been involved so far, and I'd like to take this opportunity to study the issue.
All right.
Thank you. Jim Harvey, do you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, I'm driving roundabouts or signals at intersections with heavy traffic. I think those are great ideas, but we have to consider, I'll send my comments in, but we have to consider traffic flow and backup for the whole coast side. So we have to, it's a, you know, there are two sides to the coin. And so I'm sure that you're aware of those concerns, and I'll email my comments, but we have to be aware of the complications. Thank you.
That is definitely, and I'd appreciate your emailed comments.
Thank you. Director Scott Boyd.
Hi. Sure. Yeah. I'm a big fan of roundabouts when they're appropriately placed and appropriately sized. I've got, and I'm sure it comes as no surprise, I've got real serious reservations about the proposed placement of the roundabout at Carlos. I'll give you one tangible safety concern I've got. It's on a bend. There's no decent line of sight coming from either direction. And for an area that's traveled very heavily by tourists who are here for the first time, I'm very concerned that placement is not well considered using traditional highway safety design guidance. And in looking through the materials, I didn't see the safety case to support that placement. If there needs to be one, let's find a good place to put it. But then that goes to the question of the justification for the placement, which stands kind of at odds with the lot merger program and the lot retirement program. If it's there to serve as yet unpermitted high density development, then it seems to be running in two directions at once, which I guess for a roundabout is probably kind of appropriate in some kind of way. But I want to make sure that we're not putting the cart before the horse and committing to a multi-million-dollar roundabout. I mean, this agency is used to doing multi-million-dollar projects. I'm not afraid of those when the time is right. But I have a feeling that we've got a solution in search of a problem, and the problem is happily waiting for the solution in order to uncork some of the things that are going to block it. Level of service F on Highway 1 at key points is something that you're probably well aware that high density developments have often faced as concerns. And having this proposal being advocated by the county and having the other proposal being advocated by the county, we know that we're not allowed to piecemeal in the way that we do our work. And so we're very attentive to what appears to be a piecemealing on this part. And so I just want to make it really clear, from where I sit, having long looked at Highway 1 and Highway 92 level of service issues dating back to before the tunnel, having done traffic counts myself, having studied a lot about highway safety and NHTSA and other DOT things, having gone to school right there at the Texas Transportation Institute at Texas A&M, I've had a long-standing interest for some odd reason in how this stuff works. And I think the Carlos sighting of the roundabout, no matter how good an idea a roundabout is, that seems to me to be the singular most problematic element of what I've seen in the plan so far. And what we know as an agency is that if we have a project that has merit, what tends to work out best is when we sit with stakeholders and find a way to help it work, rather than try to shoehorn it into a footing that's very challenging. So, I mean, I think we're all very interested in seeing traffic flow on Highway 1 improved, but I don't see the kind of uphill battle that particular sighting of that particular proposed improvement is going to bring us any kind of relief. And I'd rather work on something that's going to bring us some relief. So I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you're presenting. I think that in terms of the survey, it's going to benefit everybody if it's easier for people to visualize the improvements that we're talking about. The slides look fine, but when you get down and actually see some site plans and some proposed visualizations, it takes on a much deeper visceral sense. And the people here in this community, they're very eager to support the things that they can see and get behind. And they're very eager to stymie things where it's hard to visualize it, because there's usually a reason for that. So I'm glad you're here. Thank you for presenting tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And thank you for your comments. It's all good things to consider. And I especially agree with your point that people need to be able to see what they're talking about, and we are working on some more visualizations, especially now that we're moving more online. We're having to rethink some things. So thank you.
Thank you. Scott, are you done?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Rick Lohman.
Hey, Rick Lohman here. I'm in the boardroom, obviously. The couple comments. First of all, I think it's a great presentation. Again, thank you for being here. I think all the walking and biking parts are great. The only concern I would have is when you start talking the crossings of Highway 1. Those are always controversial here. And I think those need to be looked at, because as soon as you put things like a stoplight up or some stoppage, Highway 1 shuts down. So when we had a recent study years ago about all of Moss Beach areas, and Caltrans proposed 75 signs and lights along about a 2-mile stretch, the community freaked out. So I think the coastal trail and the multi-use is a great idea. And again, just watch out for the crossings of Highway 1. You mentioned traffic calming on Main Street in Montara. I didn't even know we had traffic that much on Main Street in Montara. I certainly didn't know that it needed to be calmed down. Is that a big issue for people, that thousands of cars are zooming down Main Street? I'm a Montara person. It just seems pretty quiet to me. I very rarely even see another car on Main Street.
Right. So some of those improvements on Main Street, Potentially we'd be routing the multimodal trail down Main Street. So we'd be trying to fill in sidewalks there, make sure there are safe crossings. So that could also include things like bulb outs to extend the sidewalk, to shorten crossings. And it could include things that slow traffic down and make it more pedestrian friendly. And so I think that's some of the idea behind the traffic calming on Main Street.
I don't even know how many sidewalks we have in Montara. Maybe they're all on Main Street. The community plan says no sidewalks, so that's Montara for us. I'm a little concerned about the lot retirement program. I've seen this in other cases where the way to get a subdivision in is to pick up a bunch of totally worthless minor lots somewhere that have no potential for building and wipe those out as an excuse to put a big subdivision in. So subdivisions, of course, are always an issue here. And so that would be a concern of mine. I'd like to see more of that. And the more specifics you show people, the better on that, I think also. The transportation mitigation fees is my last comment. Historically, when projects like the Big Wave project came in, the EIRs for those projects were so woefully inadequate, they just basically ignored the problem. There are other proposals for projects now coming in on the mid-coast, around Half Moon Bay and on our coast side also. And I think having an absolutely good traffic study is the basis for all of these. And as Scott said, often we're talking, category F transportation, and then that's just ignored. And well, it's only going to be 500 more car journeys per day. But at the key things, the traffic's already shut down and 500 more will shut down. So those to me are the key things. And the better you can mitigate those and present those to the public, the better chance I think you have of getting a better response, because this is a good start. And I think the survey, as other people said, is really good too. You'll get all kinds of comments from the survey. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Rick. Now I'll make my comments. I've got quite a few of them, just like everyone else on our board. We've been involved for a long time, and we represent a community that cares deeply, and so do we. First, I noticed the project area, the gray area, is huge. It goes all the way between 280 to Highway 1. Now, a lot of that is San Francisco PUC area, and there's a few trails through there, but I'm trying to figure out what you mean by the dotted line coastal zone, and then you've got your gray area for the project area, and that's a huge amount of space. Are you talking about putting new trails and roads through there? At one point in time, there was supposed to be 2 freeways that came through there, but just saying. So maybe the map should be for the survey should be corrected to really show what the where the changes are being considered.
Yeah, that's a good point.
One of the stakeholders is Montara Water and Sanitary District. We've had this issue with Public Works before, in that work is done on a street and it's not coordinated with us when we have work on sewer lines or water lines. And for this and for all future work, it would save the public money, and it would be a good working relationship for Public Works to work with the special districts who have lines running under the roads, not only just for this project, but throughout our community. Those are very important things that if we aren't able to coordinate it, it costs the ratepayers in the special district money, and it can cost the county money. Let me see, moving on. For your parking lots and such, please use pervious surfaces so that we don't have increased runoff going into the streams and into the ocean. There's pervious concretes. I believe there are pervious asphalts. Up at near Ceremony Center, they have a whole parking lot that drains into a gravel drainage pit. It's by Panera, up off of Ceremony Boulevard. And there's parking right on top of it, but the parking lot then doesn't create any runoff.
Good point.
Thank you. Another is a multimodal trail on Main. That doesn't cover the problem area. Where we really need consideration is over the little bridge by about 18th Street between Montara and Moss Beach. We finally managed to get a left turn lane for northbound traffic to be able to get into MWSD and the hostel, but there's no place that people can safely cross there. And there's no place that people can safely walk or ride their bicycles there. And I believe what we will see with putting a multimodal trail on Main Street is that people won't use it, and they'll still be using what they continue to use, which is Highway 1. I agree there are some crazy drivers on Main Street, and it's important for people to be aware of that, particularly when there's some tall pickup trucks or things parked too close to the corner and you can't see the traffic that's coming one direction or another. But I really think you need to re-examine your multimodal spot and look more closely at the area over the creek. There's a bridge there between Montara and Moss Beach. And people have talked to me about that quite a bit. I agree with Rick's comments on the lot retirement program and the lot merger program. These lots, we have lots in creeks. We have lots under the harbor. Just the subdivision went into the harbor, and then they created the breakwater and with sea level rise and so on. But I believe that all of this lot work, any new development that is allowed or different development that is allowed as a result of these programs should be in the immediate community. So if there's a lot retirement and subdivision granted, it's for somewhere in Moss. If there's a lot retirement in Moss Beach, the new subdivision could be in Moss Beach, but not in El Granada or Montara or Princeton. The same for if it happens in Montara. And I think it might even want to get very specific to the zoning area. Because there are zoning areas with, I spent decades paying attention to substandard lots and lot retirement programs in Montara, Moss Beach, and El Granada. And I think it could work, but we need to be very careful of the specific community. How long do you think this plan, what's the timeline on this plan?
For plan approval or for implementation of the projects?
Approval and implementation.
Right. So our timeline, pre-shelter at home order, we were thinking about doing outreach in March and April, and then trying to, after that, work on finalizing, coming up with a final version of the plan and taking it to the Planning Commission, the Mid-Coast Community Council, Board of Supervisors over the next few months. That timeline is potentially shifting a little bit due to our current situation. We're trying to move online to do our outreach, and potentially that would just shift our timeline a month or two, but we might also have to consider that we need to do additional outreach, in person, depending on the situation. So we were hoping, potentially summer or fall approval, but we will have to listen to the community and kind of gauge where we are as we go along.
Okay. One thing I would like to see in this, in the local coastal program, for instance, it says in it, it's supposed to be updated every 5 years. It was approved in 1980 and the update was approved in 2012. That was a little more than 5 years. There were a few minor updates in between. I would like to see incorporated in this project and in the plan, a commitment to review and update periodically at, every 5 years or so as knowledge and the situation changes. I want to add, I strongly support roundabouts. I just got to utilize roundabouts in a Commonwealth country. So we were driving on the wrong side of the car, on the wrong side of the street, and the wrong way around a roundabout. And it worked. And I will say one of the things that made it work was that the maps and everything, when you were going somewhere, it told you take the first turn. In this case, it would have been to the left because we were going clockwise, or the second turn or the third turn. So you knew where you were going. You didn't have to be looking for the street signs. And I think signage is one of those things that's very, very important. I've also used roundabouts in Truckee and Kings Beach and other parts of the country. I don't endorse the Michigan turns. Michigan rights are a little odd, or maybe it's Michigan lefts, but a real roundabout does work. And the ones in the ones in Kings Beach, they've made the curb on the roundabout flat. So you can feel it when your wheel goes over it, but it allows emergency vehicles and big trucks, they don't have to take that tight turn. They take a very gentle turn instead. Kings Beach had to rebuild all of their roundabouts because they had a tall curb on the circular part and people were knocking tires off and trucks were having trouble. Fourth, or another comment is this will go to the Coastal Commission. So are any comments on this considered feedback for a Coastal Commission permit?
So I don't believe that the plan right now is to have this certified by the Coastal Commission. So any project recommended in the plan right now will have to go through its own permitting process. Will have to get its own local coastal permit if that's what is required. So does that answer the question?
It does. And this is a note for the audience.
Catherine, we've lost your audio.
Yeah.
Catherine, we've lost your audio.
Put on our website, maybe a specific.
Catherine, we missed. I think we missed quite a bit of that.
Yes.
But why don't you try again? It's been pretty clear, but we had a momentary outage.
Okay. Well, I'm asking Clemens to put this on this presentation on our website, and asking Katie and Clemens to stay in touch as amendments come and go so people can find the email address to send comments to, and also so they can stay up to date on going on. Did you get that?
Yep.
Yes.
Let me mention that
Okay,
we have
good.
2 hands up. Clemens and Debbie Schechter.
Okay, and what we need to do, Katie, is take your figure off the screen
I can do that.
because I can't see the other people. Oh, thank you.
How's
Yeah.
that?
Okay, good. Now I can see hands. So let's start with Debbie Schechter and then move to Clemens.
Let me unmute Debbie 1 second. Okay, Debbie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Debbie Schechter. I thought I would just quickly introduce myself because it appears that I've been lurking. I'm a consultant that is likely to be working with Katie and the rest of the county team to help plan and run the online and in-person community meetings to get input on this project. So that's why I'm here, just to hear the presentation and to hear your all's reaction. So thank you.
Thank you. Clemens.
Yeah, first, thanks again, Katie, for making this presentation to our board. Really appreciate the opportunity for input. And I'm going to echo what I've heard from Scott and Catherine about the roundabouts. I'm glad they're finally coming to the coast. There is no better way to keep the traffic flowing, and they're very intuitive. So I'm very happy to see that. But I want to pick up where Scott left a little bit with concern about the location of the roundabouts. And that now goes to the placement of our facilities. And the problem with our facilities is they're all underground. You can't see them, or a lot of them are underground. You can't see them. Mm-hmm. Particularly for the Carlos Street, the 16th Street, is it 16th at right here at our entrance? Mm-hmm. We just paid over $1 million to relocate a sewer manhole that was in the traveled right-of-way. So I can't envision how that roundabout is placed without placing that manhole once again into the traveled right-of-way, which is creating a huge problem for us because we can't access it to service it. Mm. As Catherine mentioned, the dam, I'm going to call it, rather than a bridge going north towards Montara, is very narrow, and there is very little space left, particularly for biking after the improvements right now. It's very dangerous for bikes, mm-hmm. but it also just doesn't leave any room for utilities. So we had to, we have water and sewer lines that have separation requirements, etc., in that area. We have a hydrant sitting right there. That's I'm certain somebody noticed that during a survey that probably happened for that. But the sewer lines probably weren't noted and probably weren't picked up. Similar concern to any roundabout that is going to be implemented in Moss Beach. The pressurized sewer pipeline that transports the sewage to the centralized treatment plant in Half Moon Bay is running very close to the western shoulder of the highway. On the eastern side, we have also pressurized water main lines. So the placement, I think, in Moss Beach is something that, with careful placement, there can be a solution found. For Carlos Street, I right now I don't see how that could work. And once again, it just cost us $1 million for a small agency. You're hearing that we have to go out and raise rates for folks right now to keep our infrastructure in place. So that was a very important project for us. And we can't have that sewer manhole in the traveled right of way again. So I'm going to be very interested in seeing how this could be placed there. So I think there would be some significant earth movement towards the western side needed to avoid this.
Okay.
Then I'm going to advocate once more for the bikers in this world. Going down Highway 1 is currently actually relatively safe, even though it doesn't look like that, because Highway 1 is so wide and leaves all the space available for cyclists to stay out of the traveled way, at least in most sections. And I'm hoping that that is going to stay. I mean, the only improvement that I can see would be some sort of a visual or physical barrier between cars and bikes. But what I want to caution against is the bike lanes that were built in Half Moon Bay require the cyclists to stop at each street. So cars have the right of way and bikes have to stop. And that is an extremely dangerous situation. I know that there is always going to be the notion to prioritize cars and the flow on Highway 1. But if you look at any other country, you will not find a situation where a bike has to stop in this situation just because it's counterintuitive to stop at that intersection. If you now give bikes the cars the right of way, we're going to see some severe accidents, and that already happened in Half Moon Bay. People lost their lives because of this situation. So I want to be, very clear that that is something extremely dangerous. How this was implemented in Half Moon Bay, and I'm hoping that that is not going to be repeated up here. And that's going to be it from my side.
Great. Scott, do we have, I don't see any hands up for, I see Rick, but I don't see any others from the public. So while they're thinking, let's go to Rick.
Just one quick sort of summary comment. And again, it's on process. Having seen tons of projects go through here, the public here is very involved. They love to get involved, but they're also very, very busy all the time. So the more advertising and surveys and everything you can do up front, we've seen tons of projects. They get finalized, they get approval, they start something, and then everybody starts screaming, hey, wait, why didn't you talk to me? And that's the biggest problem I see on publicity. The more you can get people, this information out to people, the way better chance you have of success and getting much better feedback when it's appropriate, not when it's already bulldozers hit the road. So just kind of a general comment.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm sorry, Katie, let me add that there was a project to put a trail through the woods and at Fitzgerald Marine Reserve.
Mhm.
And it was advertised as a trail. So everybody thought, oh, it's a trail, 4 or 5 feet wide. I don't know if you were here for that, but I think it ended up bringing in dump truck loads full of dirt, scraping something. I'm making up numbers now because I haven't personally measured it, but I believe it's about 12 feet wide. You could drive 2 cars on it. And people in the community were outraged at the lack of specificity of what a trail was to the parks versus what a trail is to our community. And I want to add that in the local coastal program, there's a very important section in the development about preserving the rural community character. It's also in the community plan. And you can hear in my voice that that's a very important thing to a lot of people here. When you start talking to people here, they don't want this to be an El Camino. They don't want it to be a major throughway like you've got in Palo Alto, like some of those roads. We are a small community on the mid-coast, and a trail for us is something that people can safely pass going two different directions, but that you actually can acknowledge each other as walking the same trail instead of walking on both sides of a freeway. So community character is something that I believe the whole community will be looking for. And I believe dimensions and those kinds of things should be mentioned early on in the plan so people understand what we're talking about. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Good.
I don't see any more hands. Rick,
Nope.
Peter,
Oh,
Scott,
No,
Jim? I don't see any hands on the screen
no, we're
from the
clear.
public who's listening, so we will close this item. Thank you very much, Katie. And
Thank
we will
you.
make your materials accessible on our website so people know to come to us to look for your email too. And I encourage everyone listening to not only comment on this, but to encourage others to come and look at this and comment on it. This is how we've created our community, and this is how we will be able to have it grow appropriately. So thank you very much. Moving
you.
on to item number 3, new business. Review and possible action declaring a local emergency. Clemens.
Thank you, Catherine. Yes, so we've seen this come from the feds, the state, as well as San Mateo County, that all have declared public health emergency in regards to the current COVID-19 pandemic. The emergency declaration is really something that allows us particularly to work with the OES, and that is, of course, to receive financial assistance and recover some of the costs that we're currently running into to mitigate and plan for what's happening right now and what's coming in the next months. Hopefully, we leave it at months. Now, of course, we're providing an essential service. We're first responders, really. I think it is very prudent that we're also thinking through in one of the following items, we're thinking through about what is it that we actually have to do right now to be best prepared if we're directly impacted. So this declaration has multiple purposes, and we're recommending to adopt a resolution declaring a local emergency related to COVID-19. And then we're also recommending to adopt a resolution assigning the district's designated agents for all matters pertaining to state disaster assistance. As in the prior topic that was related to the pandemic, there's some things are happening very fast. So there is some dates on this resolution that we already need to change. So we're asking that this be approved in concept and that we can revise the text accordingly to reflect the new order that was just issued 2 days ago, I think it was, by the San Mateo County Health Officer, for example. So that's staff recommendation.
Okay. Thank you. So your recommendation is to approve resolution 1670. Let me see. I don't see any comments from the public. No hands up. And from the board, Jim, any comments? Jim, you're on mute, but I'm assuming you're saying no. You're on mute, Jim. Okay. Scott Boyd,
No, I don't. I think this is prudent.
Rick Lohman.
Catherine,
Yes.
I saw a notice that the host muted me. I couldn't get off mute. So
Gotcha.
if I'm on mute and if I can't get off, if the sign says the host muted me, there's not much I can do.
Oh, that's odd. I'm sorry, Jim. I did not mute you, but the software seems to think that happened. So
Oh,
it's good to know
Well-
that happened. I'll keep an eye on it.
Jim, it just cuts me off without even pressing the mute, without even telling me I'm muted. So,
Okay.
Peter,
No, are we going forward with this motion?
I'm asking for comment if you have any comment.
No, I have no comment.
Okay, good. And neither do I. Do we have a motion to adopt resolution 1670?
I make that motion.
I'll
Second?
second it.
Okay, motion by Peter Decker, second by Scott. Roll call vote, please.
Director Boyd,
Aye.
Director Decker,
Aye.
Director Harvey,
Aye.
Director Loman,
Is this the longest resolution we've ever had before? I vote yes.
Director Slater Carter.
Aye. Motion carries, motion for resolution 1670 carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to review and possible action concerning MWSD's COVID-19 pandemic preparedness.
Thanks, Catherine. So we really put this item up on the agenda to allow for a little bit of status update on how are we actually dealing with this pandemic, and what is it that's happening right now at MWSD. And so we're really putting our heads together right now to focus on a couple of things, and the first one is really protecting the health of our employees. That's going to be the foremost, that's going to be the main focus really right now. We also have to, of course, maintain our essential operations. That's one of the reasons why we need to protect the health of our employees. We are looking also at the maintenance of our essential facilities, equipment, supplies. All of that has to continue to work. And then we have some things on the planning side that we need to address or already addressed, looking through our emergency response plan, for example, et cetera, et cetera. So we did a number of things. We provided guidelines for our employees. For example, we are doing what most folks doing, which is allowing remote work. We are trying to avoid the crossing of the paths of our employees, trying to find ways where teamwork projects are handled differently. Social distancing is very important. So for example, we have an emergency leak repair that will be done tomorrow. We put a lot of focus on how to separate our staff there. It's actually very tricky. You know, if you're used to 2 people in an excavated hole trying to fix a leak, and that is what it takes most of the time, we have to put a lot of effort in to think through how we can avoid this right now. And so of course we closed the office for the public. We're continuing to provide, of course, the services that we are used to providing, including anything that's related with permitting. Construction has now widely been shut down, but the planning is going to continue in the background. there is a number of things that I think I want to point out to the board that I think we mentioned some of those already the last meeting. For example, we're foregoing any water payment late fees that are incurred right now during this emergency. So any late fees that starting March, we're foregoing right now. We encourage folks to call the office to set up payment plans. We've been looking at workforce contingency plan. We know very well where to get more operators if we need more operators. So we're thinking through what happens if one of us or all of us get sick, and are preparing accordingly for this right now. And we're doing this, of course, under the, following the strict advice of federal, state, and local health officer. And oh yeah, another main aspect is, of course, communication. And that involves, of course, the public. It also involves all of our consultants, all of our not our consultants, but also our all the deliveries, all the chemicals that we need, for example, all the vendors. We need to stay in close contact with. They're impacted, so we need to ensure that all of this is going to be available and continues to operate. And so far, this has actually been a very good experience, I have to say. Is similar to the PSPS situations that we were faced with in last year. Those were, of course, very short and brief, and we aren't much into the pandemic right now. We're about a month in reality. But so far, the responses that we get from the neighboring agencies, from our vendors, etc., all of our partners, from also from our regulators, for example, has been nothing but supportive. So I think this is something I want to really point out. So yeah, so that's also, I'm happy if there's a discussion ensuing about this and questions coming, but this is what we're really focusing on very much right now.
Great, thank you. Do we have any comments or questions from the public? Okay, moving to the board. Director Boyd.
No, thank you. I mean, I've had some chance to discuss some of these things with Clemens as we were preparing the technical setup for tonight, and we just talked through some of these things. So I'm hearing it again, and I'm grateful for the deliberate forethought going into trying to keep everyone safe. Right now, it takes very little to have very dire consequences for people, and it takes some real hard thinking and some deliberate action to do our work in a way that protects people. And I'm grateful, and I'm grateful to Clemens and to the staff, and urge everybody to be mindful as we work that we do it as safely as we possibly can while providing a couple of services that honestly most of us go through life not thinking about at all. But if anything happens to the water or the sewer, especially right now, it could be very, very much worse than people would think. So thank you for doing that. And if there's any other way that we can weigh in to help, let us know.
Thank you.
Okay. Good. I see that Jim is on mute. Scott, did you do that or did Jim do that?
No, I did not.
Okay. Jim, your turn.
I'll unmute you anyway. Okay. I have to hit it twice for some reason. Okay.
Thank you. For some reason, it puts me on mute. No comment. Thank you for Clemens for doing a great job. Thank you.
Okay, Peter.
I was doing very well. I paid the occasional visit to the office to sign checks. And I have nothing but compliments for Clemens in the way that he handles things. And for Tracy.
Thank you.
Rick.
I think it's a great plan, and I think it's very thorough, except for no cookies in the boardroom.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. We're going to have to figure out how to Zoom cookies so we all feel like it's a regular meeting. But I would like to ask Clemens where it is that people can drop off their 218 use opportunities to do it. Of course, there's
Catherine,
always
we're
post
losing a chunk of your
um,
audio. I'm going to mute your video to see if that helps.
again.
Yep, but why don't you try it now? Is that
Okay.
any better? Oh, that's
Okay,
much
I'll
better.
try it. Let me know. If Clemens, I was asked, oh, that's vicious, Scott.
God.
Oh, I brought enough for everybody.
Oh, thank you.
We'll be by in a minute. We know where you live.
Yeah.
People online remember this. We typically have cookies at our meetings, and we do encourage people to come when we get off of this COVID stuff. But anyway, COVID social distancing. In any event, Clemens, I was asking if you could finish up this this action with once again telling people where they can put their 218 protests. You mentioned there were some at the office, and then there's always 2 post offices.
Yes, right. So besides the 2 post offices, there is a drop-off box outside the fence at the district offices next to our bulletin board that's emptied daily. We also now mounted a second drop-off box that is locked for letter size drop-offs next to the entrance door directly at the Montara Water and Sanitary District office, so that there's no chance that anyone could miss a drop-off box. So there's now 2 drop-off boxes in close vicinity, one at the bulletin box, one mounted next to the entrance door of the district offices. There's also some drop-off bins clearly marked next to the entrance door for larger packets. That's actually meant for plans, but if a letter finds its way in there, we'll find it as well. So there is plenty of opportunity to drop off anything with or without calling in advance. So yeah, I hope that clarifies that, you know, you can continue to come to the office and just hand us paperwork, not physically, but drop it off.
Great, thank you very much. Moving on to the item 5 on new business, review and possible action concerning district council, resolution 1671.
All right, thanks. So our current legal advisor is David Schricker, as we all know. And he was appointed by the district in 1986. So he has contributed quite a bit to this district. I wanted to, Dave is currently unavailable, and there's also no return date expected at this time. Dave is sending his regards to the full board and to all the staff. So wanted to make sure that I share that with everyone. And right now we actually are working with Christine Fitzgerald as what is acting legal counsel. And Christine has worked for a very long time for this agency as well. There is at least 20 years that Christine has worked through her office in an advisory function for the district on various matters. And that was either directly or indirectly through Dave Schricker's office. So yeah, so she's been appointed on October 3, 2019 as acting general counsel. And you know, we've seen the experience and knowledge of district business that has helped us tremendously in this situation. And so we're suggesting to appoint Christine Fitzgerald of the Fitzgerald Law Offices as district counsel. There is an existing agreement. There's nothing that changes on the financial side. This is really, we want to be in this situation right now, be prepared for the situation. We want to have a general counsel going into this pandemic situation. And by the way, I just want to mention also, we also have a backup plan in case Christine has to spend 2 weeks without us. So again, the recommendation is to appoint Christine Fitzgerald of the Fitzgerald Law Offices as district counsel and adopt the resolution of the Montara Water and Sanitary District appointing district counsel. That's it for my presentation.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from our audience?
No hands raised.
No hands raised. Thank you, Scott. Let's take this to the board then, and I will ask for comments. Peter?
I have no comment.
Jim?
I think this is the good idea. I think she's done a great job, and she's really been involved through the heat of recent happenings, and I think she's very qualified. So I recommend that we approve this resolution.
Thank you. Rick?
As long as she occasionally brings cookies.
Okay. Scott?
I'm sorry, it's impossible. It can't be that long because didn't you just graduate law school? And no, Christine, in all seriousness, Christine, if it had not been for her help, she was instrumental in this agency acquiring the water system, working very closely with Fitzgerald Law, her father Herman at the time, and she's been a fixture and has been a great collaborator with Clemens and with Dave Schricker over what apparently was a whole lot of years, but it sure didn't seem like it. And that, I think, in part reflects how well that you've been serving the agency. So I'm very supportive.
Thank you.
And I agree, and I just think that welcome to your official appointment as district counsel, assuming that's a majority vote. So let's have a motion and a second.
I move for the resolution.
The resolution is 1671. So who made the motion?
I move for the resolution 1671, and that's.
Thank you, Rick Lohman. And I heard Jim make the second.
And I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please, Tracy.
Okay. Director Boyd?
Aye.
Director Decker?
Aye.
Director Harvey?
Aye.
Director Lohman?
Yes.
Director Slater Carter?
Absolutely. That's a yes. So the motion 16 for resolution 1671 carries and it passed unanimously. And thank you very much, Christine. You've done a great job and we look forward to working with you.
Yay, Christine.
Thank you. Thank you all
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you for being willing to put up with us.
Good day.
You're welcome.
That's right. The last item, review and possible action concerning substantial completion of the Cabrillo Highway Sewer Improvement Phase 1A project.
Okay, so
Clements.
yeah, thank you, Catherine. This is the project that we talked about earlier. This is really moving the manhole at 16th Street out of the traveled way. It also had to do with creating a bit better grade through the section that is just north, all the sewage coming from Montara. So this we can see the price tag right now is $1.261 million. We've spent to date $1.23 million on this project. Now, it involved actually, so what we're looking here, so we have authorization to spend this money. So I want to be very clear on this. The board already authorized and approved the project, and we could simply sign this check. However, we're in a bit of a different situation here because that project has essentially been completed, but we would like to keep it open because there is two components still missing. One of them is the hydroseeding of anything that is on our district property. And that was done already once, but was not successful. So it has to be completed, has to be done again. And there is also substantial work or relatively substantial work that we did through a change order on the road that is on the district property leading to the Sewer Authority Mid-Coast side Montara pump station. And we the road was damaged and it was in the plans that this had to be completed, but the difference now is that we have some significant drainage improvements in the upper section. And the background there is that we see significant erosion along the cliff side on our property due to this road, due to the runoff from this road. So that's something that needs to be addressed. We took care of it on the upper section. We have communicated with the Sewer Authority Mid-Coast side to share the cost for the improvements to be for the entire road. So the plan is to extend the improvements now to the pump station. Sam pays 50% of all of the work, and this is also going to be done through change order with the existing contractor. It's already in the SAM budget, so as long as that gets approved, in the capital improvement program, so as long as that gets approved during this budget cycle, SAM has that money available as well. So we're asking, that is what we're asking again for now, the authorization to make a significant progress payment and also to return some of the deposit that's currently held. In this situation right now, I think it's very important for the contractor to receive this money. And I think everybody is going to have a hard time staying afloat. And so I think we want to support the contractor that did the work. We're a bit in an exceptional situation that this project has been really spread out over a long time. And so we're asking to follow the recommendation from the district's sewer engineer and authorize the progress payments. And it's clear that a final project closeout will be presented at a future meeting. That concludes the staff report.
Good. Do we have any hands up with the public, Scott?
No.
Okay, let's bring it back to the board. We'll start with board members. Jim Harvey,
No comment. I approve.
Peter Decker,
I approve too.
Rick Lohman,
I approve. We need to keep the contractors working for us, so the progress payments seem perfectly reasonable to me.
Scott Boyd,
Sounds like Clemens, you understand the ins and outs and have it pretty well in hand. So it seems prudent.
right, and I will say, yes, I believe so, and I think having a good working relationship with our contractors gets us better bids and lower prices in the long run, and we have a lot of work to do, and we've got good contractors who have treated us well, and we need to be concerned about taking care of them too. So I will ask for a motion in support of this and a second.
So moved.
Scott's motion. Second,
Second.
anyone?
I second the motion.
Jim makes a second. Roll call, please, Tracy.
Okay. Director Boyd,
Aye.
Director Decker,
Aye.
Director Harvey,
Aye.
Director Lohman,
Yes.
Director Slater Carter.
Yes. Good, and that ends new business, so we are moving on to reports. Sewer Authority Mid-Coast Side meetings. The last meeting on March, what was it, 23rd, was pretty much just routine business for Sam. It was personnel business and such.
I got a comment, Catherine.
Please.
Yeah, after we created the financial officer, like Catherine said, there was an item having to do with the stop work order that Half Moon Bay did on the big pipeline project there. They had a problem with the contractor where he mowed down a bunch of willow trees.
Or a few.
So Half Moon Bay picked their biologist and got a quote for almost $50,000 to monitor, for 10 days to stand there and watch the willow trees grow. Per some other comments I heard, that seemed like an awful lot of money because the damage was already done and they were just going to do a bunch of phone calls and then I guess look at the willow trees for a while. So I made a bunch of comments about that's way too much money. We were outvoted, and so we spent a bunch of money on that. So that's all.
Well, and to just add to that, we have yet to receive a written notice that the stop work order has been lifted. So this has been going on for been 19 days. So we are only 6 days now. There's going to be a serious serious charges that will have to be resolved because of this stop work order. We were 200 feet from the end of the project when Half Moon Bay came out and applied the stop work order.
Yeah,
So
my
this-
comments earlier were not that Half Moon Bay did a stop work order, but once again, it was 100% unilateral action. They never called another of any of the general managers. We have a general manager committee to discuss things before action's taken. That action was not taken. So we are all going to end up paying for Half Moon Bay's unilateral action. And I believe it's going to be on the agenda for the next meeting to discuss this. So that's going to be an unfriendly meeting, I think.
Well, it will at least be interesting, and I
Yes.
would encourage people to pay close attention to this. There was also a special meeting of SAM on March 30th. Or into new attorney candidates, because the current SAM attorney has decided he wants to spend more time with his family. And so we interviewed two, we selected one, and we will be, the discussions on his contract are ongoing now, and it will be announced and the contract approved for April meeting at SAM. So that's very good news.
And it was a unanimous
Midcoast
vote. I think we can say that.
It was a unanimous vote. Thank you. Coast Community Council meeting. I haven't been watching it on video, and haven't been paying that close attention. Would encourage people to tune in and pay attention. They are working for each of us on the coast. CSDA.
That was canceled still, and the LAFCO meeting was canceled to be maybe come up in April. So they were setting up all these remote things for the April meeting. But
Okay. The agenda item says acting attorney's report, but I'm pleased to say district council report.
Oh, thank you. I do have a brief report. Just today, and maybe some of you are already aware, but the governor has approved another executive order that places a moratorium on water shutoffs due to non-payment of fees. So that, of course, all public and private water agencies will not be able to disconnect water service to residences or businesses while during the pandemic. Not that occurs in Montara, but I just thought I'd make you all aware of it.
I want to just briefly jump in and say that we in Montara have since a very long time, maybe a decade or so, not shut off for non-payment. We consider it a health and safety issue, and we're working with our customers with payment plans and any way we can to accommodate them. So there's not really any action that we need to take.
No.
Good.
great.
Okay, general managers report or directors reports. Hearing none. Report.
Nothing here.
Okay, Clemens, do you have anything to report?
Yeah, I have one item, and that's actually a suggestion that is coming from Peter Dicker. We're in need to start. We have to start thinking about the situation our customers are in, And I think I mentioned that we are right now not imposing any late fees. And Peter had the suggestion, we're going to start actually a hardship rate on July 1. And so we will have a list of folks that are in need for financial support. We understand there is a time where they need it more than before, and that's now. And so the Peter's suggestion was to essentially credit everyone on that list $100 without really asking any questions. Now, currently I think we have 24 or 25 by now people that are on this list. We expect the list to grow a little bit. But as you all know, the PG&E Care program is what we're considering really. So the suggestion is really that we're considering applying $100 credit to the account of folks that are registered with us through the PG&E Care program. So that's going to be right now. I mean, my estimate is the number is probably going to increase a little bit. I don't think that we're going to see probably, let's say it doubles. That would be $4,000. So I think that's a gesture that we can make immediately. We may have to look at other measures later down the road, but I think that's a concession that we can make right now. So it's within the spending limit that the board, or I feel like I can make this decision, but I think I wanted to bring this up at this meeting, and I'm hoping to find support for this idea.
I think Clemens, we could do a straw poll, but we can't take any official
That's correct.
action.
That's correct. That's why I'm not asking for a vote on this, but more like support or straw poll of this. And I think the idea would be also to publish this, and maybe this an opportunity to publish it would be, for example, to bring it up at the following board meeting and make this official.
That sounds like a good plan. Is there anyone on the board who would like to give an opinion?
This idea didn't come from anywhere. It came from the San Mateo Daily News, where it was reported that PG&E will credit the people that are in their plan, the people who have a very low salary, to help them during this crisis with $100 credit towards their April bill. And when I read that notice, I thought that we could match that.
I think
Anyone
we've long
else?
had, yeah, I think we've long had people bring to us concerns about people in really tough spots. And I think this crisis affords us an opportunity to consider what can we do. So thank you for bringing that forward, Peter and Clemens.
I see Jim and Rick nodding, and I agree with Scott and Peter. I would like to see a discussion on this, just so we can make it official for our records. But thank you, Clemens, for bringing, and Peter, for bringing this to us. We're a small community, and we take care of each other this way. I see it on in many small acts of generosity that happen all the time. That and so I look forward to having it on our next agenda. If people go to our agenda, they will see at the end of the agenda a list of future agenda items. I won't read it to you, but there are 7 right now, and they actually all agree. They all pertain to financing and budgets and sewer service charges. So I recommend everybody stay tuned. Tune into our next meeting, and please join us when you can, when we finally can have cookies. Everybody can have a real cookie at our meeting. Thank you very much. I'm going to announce the conclusion of the general session and ask those who are not needed for closed session items to sign off. We then General Counsel has a statement to make on authorized people. Christine.
Thank you, President Slater Carter. Just to reiterate and